April 1972, Los Angeles. An old man walks onto a stage. He is 82 years old. He moves slowly. He needs a cane to walk. The whole room stands up, and it does not sit back down. For 12 minutes they stand and they clap. The old man just looks at them. He takes off his hat. He does not speak. This man was not allowed inside America for 20 years. The country told him to leave and never come back. Now they will not stop clapping. His name was Charlie Chaplin. And to understand that night, you have to go back 80 years. To a cold street in London. To a small boy with no coat, no food, and nowhere to sleep. That is where this story starts. London, 1889. Not the beautiful London you see in photos. The poor part of London. A place called Lambeth. The streets were narrow and dirty. The buildings were so close together that sunlight could barely reach the ground. This is where Charles Spencer Chaplin was born, on April 16th, 1889. His father, also named Charles, was a singer. He performed in music halls. These were theaters where ordinary people went to watch comedy and music. Charlie's father was handsome and talented. He was also completely unreliable. He left the family when Charlie was very young. He just left, and Charlie did not see him again for many years. Everything now depended on Charlie's mother, Hannah. Hannah was also a performer. She sang in small theaters around London. She earned just enough money to keep a roof over their heads. Some weeks, not all weeks. She had two sons, Charlie and his older half-brother Sydney. She loved them very much, but love does not pay the rent. Then one day, Hannah lost her voice. For a singer, losing your voice means losing everything. No voice meant no singing. No singing meant no money. The family started moving from one cheap room to another. Charlie wore the same dirty clothes every day. Other children laughed at him. He felt ashamed. He felt alone. When Charlie was 7 years old, something terrible happened. His mother became very sick, not just physically. She stopped being able to think clearly. She became confused and frightened. The government decided she could not take care of her children. They took Hannah to a hospital for people with mental illness, and they sent Charlie and his brother Sydney away. Charlie and Sydney were sent to a place called the Hanwell School for Orphans and Destitute Children. Destitute means having nothing. No money, no family, nothing. It was a workhouse school. The children woke up early, worked hard, and ate very little. The rooms were cold. Nobody was kind. Charlie was 7 years old. But inside that cold and unhappy place, Charlie discovered something. He could make people laugh. A funny face, a silly walk, a stupid joke. The other boys were sad and scared. Charlie made them laugh for a moment. And for a boy who had nothing, that moment meant everything. Eventually, Hannah got better and left the hospital. She took the boys back. The family was still very poor, but Charlie's life started to change. At 9 years old, he was already performing on stage. He danced with a group of boys in small theaters. The audiences laughed. Charlie paid attention. He was already learning how to make people react. By the age of 12, he had joined a real theater company. He played small roles, a few words here, a short scene there, but he watched the experienced actors very carefully. How they paused before speaking, how they used silence, how they moved their body to tell a story. He learned more in those theaters than he ever could have learned in a classroom. At 14, he got his first real opportunity. He auditioned for a comedy touring company. An audition is when you perform for someone so they can decide if you are good enough. The manager watched this thin, nervous teenage boy and asked him to show what he could do. Charlie did not speak. He moved. He pretended to be an old man, then a drunk man. Then he pretended to fall and catch himself. The manager hired him immediately. The years that followed were hard work. Charlie traveled around Britain performing every night. Cheap hotels, cold trains, sometimes 3 shows a day. A different town every morning. But he was getting better. Every performance taught him something new. He was learning how to control an audience. In 1908, Charlie joined a famous comedy company, run by a man named Fred Karno. Karno's shows were special. The performers did not speak. They told the whole story with their bodies, with their faces, with their movements. This kind of performance is called physical comedy, and Charlie was born for it. In the Karno Company, Charlie became the best performer. His most famous character was a drunk rich gentleman. This man tried to act very polite and dignified, even as everything around him fell apart. The audiences loved it. It was funny, but it was also something they recognized. A person trying to keep their dignity when life is not cooperating. In 1910, the Karno Company traveled to America. Charlie was 21 years old. He stood on the ship as England disappeared behind him. He had very little money. He knew nobody in America. He had no plan except to perform and go home. But America was different. The audiences were bigger and louder. The cities were enormous. Charlie, who grew up in small, dirty London streets, felt like he had arrived in the future. He did one tour, then another, then a third. And then a man named Adam Kessel came to see him perform. Kessel made short comedy films. After the show, he made Charlie an offer, $150 a week. To understand how much that was, most workers in America earned about $10 a week. Charlie said yes. He arrived at Keystone Studios in Los Angeles in December 1913. The early weeks at the film studio were difficult. Charlie understood comedy, but performing for a camera was completely different. From performing on stage, you make big movements, so the people at the back of the theater can see you. But the camera is very close to your face. It sees every small expression. Big movements look fake on camera. Charlie had to learn everything again, but smaller. Then one day, the director told Charlie to go and find a funny costume. Charlie went to the room full of old clothes and started picking things. Very baggy trousers, much too big. A very small jacket, much too small. Enormous shoes, worn on the wrong feet. A small round hat. A thin walking stick called a cane. A small square mustache. He put everything on and looked in the mirror. He said later he could not explain what happened. It was not him looking back. It was someone else. A completely new person. He walked onto the film set. Everyone stopped working and looked at him. Then they started laughing. The character was perfect. This character became known as the Little Tramp. A tramp is a person with no home who walks from place to place. But this tramp was different from what you might expect. He was poor, he had nothing. But he walked like a king. He tipped his hat politely to everyone he met. He fell in love as if he deserved it. He was broke, and he did not care what you thought about that. He just kept walking, always forward. The Little Tramp became the most famous character in the world. Charlie made film after film. 35 films in his first year at Keystone. Audiences went crazy for him. Theaters put his name on the outside of the building. Children all over America copied his funny walk, the small shuffle, the feet pointing outward, the little jump back to dignity after falling down. You could see children doing it on every street. By 1915, Charlie Chaplin was not just famous. He was something the world had never seen before. There were Chaplin dolls, Chaplin postcards, Chaplin toys. A song about him sold 100,000 copies. There were competitions to see who could look most like him. Charlie entered one of these competitions himself. Without telling anyone who he was, he came in third place. He thought that was very funny. The film studios saw what was happening and started paying Charlie much more money. His salary went from $150 a week to more than $10,000 a week. Then in 1917, one studio offered him $1 million for 8 films. $1 million. for a man who once had nothing to eat. But money was not what Charlie cared about most. He wanted something else. He wanted control. In 1919, Charlie and three other famous film stars created their own film studio. They called it United Artists. The idea was simple. Instead of working for a big studio that controlled everything, they would own their films themselves. They would decide what stories to tell. They would decide how to tell them. One powerful Hollywood executive said, "The lunatics have taken over the asylum." He meant it as an insult. Charlie took it as a compliment. With his own studio, Charlie slowed down. He spent months on a single film. He filmed the same scene 20, 30, 40 times, until it was exactly right. He threw away finished scenes and started again. He was no longer just making funny films. He was making films that were funny, but also had real emotion, real sadness, real love, real pain. In 1921, he made a film called The Kid. In this film, the little tramp finds a baby that someone has left alone in the street. He tries to leave the baby with someone richer. He cannot do it. He takes the child home and raises him. When the authorities come to take the boy away, Charlie's character fights them. He runs across rooftops. He will not let this child go to a cold institution. When you watch this film, you understand why. Charlie had been that child. In 1925, he made a film called The Gold Rush. The little tramp travels to Alaska during the gold rush. He is looking for gold. He is also extremely hungry. In one famous scene, he boils his old leather boot and eats it like it is a delicious meal. He wraps the shoelaces around his fork like spaghetti. He sucks on the nails like they are chicken bones. It is very funny. It is also the comedy of someone who knows real hunger. Charlie knew that hunger, not in a film, in real life. In 1931, Charlie made City Lights. By this time, something big had changed in cinema. In 1927, films started using sound. For the first time, audiences could hear actors speak. Every studio in Hollywood changed to sound films immediately. Charlie refused. Critics said he was old-fashioned. He did not care. City Lights had no speaking. In City Lights, the little tramp falls in love with a young woman who cannot see. She is blind. He finds ways to earn money, to pay for an operation that will restore her sight. At the end of the film, the operation works. She can see for the first time. She wants to find the man who helped her. She reaches out to thank a shabby stranger on the street, and she realizes it is him. The last shot of that film shows Charlie's face. Just his face. No words. On his face you can see hope. You can see fear. You can see love. All at the same time. A famous film critic later said, "It was the greatest piece of acting ever recorded on film." Many people still agree. In 1936, Charlie made Modern Times. In this film, the little tramp works in a factory. He stands on an assembly line, which is a long moving belt where workers each do one small job. His job is to tighten bolts with a tool all day. After many hours, his body cannot stop the movement. He starts tightening everything he sees. Buttons on people's clothes, people's noses, fire hydrants on the street. The audience laughed, but they also recognized the truth in it. Many of them worked in exactly those conditions. Then came the film that changed everything for Charlie. Not in a good way. In 1940, he made a film called The Great Dictator. Charlie played two different characters in this film. The first was a kind, gentle barber, a man very similar to the little tramp. The second character was a cruel dictator, who looked and acted exactly like Adolf Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany. The film was made while World War II was beginning. Many powerful people told Charlie not to make it. He did not listen. The film ends with a powerful scene. The barber is mistaken for the dictator and is forced to make a speech to the whole nation. But instead of a dictator's speech, he talks about kindness, about peace, about treating people with respect. He speaks directly into the camera, directly to the audience watching in the cinema. It was one of the most direct things any filmmaker had ever said to an audience. The Great Dictator was very successful, but it also made Charlie many enemies. The FBI, America's national police organization, had been secretly watching Charlie since the 1920s. The head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, did not like him. The FBI kept a file on Charlie Chaplin that was nearly 2,000 pages long. 2,000 pages! For a comedian. They accused him of being a communist. The evidence was very weak, but the accusation was enough. In September 1952, Charlie sailed to Europe to attend the premiere of his new film, called Limelight. A premiere is a special first showing of a film. While his ship was crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the American government made an announcement. Charlie Chaplin's permission to re-enter America had been canceled. If he wanted to return, he would first have to appear before a government board and answer questions about his politics and his personal life. Charlie had lived in America for 40 years. He made all his greatest films there. He paid his taxes there. He raised his children there. He was not an American citizen, technically. He was still British. He had never applied to become American. Now that decision cost him everything. He did not beg. He did not try to negotiate. He sent a message saying he would not return under those conditions. And he meant it. He moved to a small town called Vevey in Switzerland, with his wife Una and their 8 children. He had a large house, money, and his family. He made 2 more films in Europe. He wrote a book about his life. He composed music. By many measures, it was a comfortable life, but the people who visited him said the same thing. When the conversation turned to Hollywood, his eyes changed. He missed it. He would never say so directly, but he missed it. Then in April 1972, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the organization that gives the Oscar Awards, invited Charlie back to America. They wanted to give him a special award for his lifetime of work in cinema. Charlie accepted. He was 82 years old. He flew back to the country that had thrown him out. He walked onto the stage of the ceremony slowly, with his cane. The entire room stood up, every person in that room, and they clapped, and they did not stop. For 12 minutes they stood and clapped. Charlie stood there and looked at all of them. He removed his hat and held it to his chest. He said almost nothing. He did not need to. 20 years earlier, America had told him to leave. Now they gave him 12 minutes of standing. That was America's way of saying sorry. Charlie went back to Switzerland after the ceremony. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth made him a knight. His official title became Sir Charles Spencer Chaplin. The boy from the poorest streets of London was now Sir Charles. He spent his final years quietly in Vevey. His wife Una said he laughed often, that he loved being with his children and grandchildren, that he was at the end happy. On Christmas morning 1977, Charlie Chaplin died peacefully in his sleep. He was 88 years old. The news spread around the world within hours. So how do we understand Charlie Chaplin? He was not born with advantages. He was born into real poverty. He lost his mother at 7 years old. He grew up in a cold institution with not enough food. He spent years performing in small towns for very little money. Every step forward was hard work. And the little tramp, that famous character, was not something Charlie invented in his imagination. It was something he remembered. That walk, that dignity, that refusal to be defeated. That was the boy from the London streets, who had nothing, but discovered that if he could make people laugh, the world would finally look at him. People all over the world loved the little tramp, because he was honest. He was all of us when life is difficult. When things go wrong, when you fall down in public, and you have to decide, do I stay on the ground or do I get up? The little tramp always got up. He fixed his hat. He straightened his jacket. He kept walking. Charlie Chaplin built that character out of everything that hurt him. And 100 years later, that little man is still walking.